What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Hope your week is treating you well. We are getting set for a blizzard here in the Green Bay area. Hopefully, everyone, I know there's been a lot of crazy weather going on. I know there's a lot of crazy weather that's supposed to happen upcoming. So if you are traveling for the holidays, please have a safe travels. But today we're going to be going over Green Bay Packers like we always do, and I'm going to be finishing up my film review of Packers and the Rams. Obviously, I'm going to be covering the offensive side of the ball today. Yesterday, I went over the defensive side of the ball. Before we get there, a couple quick news, notes, items, etc. The whole signal thing, the whole meeting thing, Packers wide receivers meeting with the Packers quarterbacks and so on and so forth. I had a phenomenal conversation about the signal stuff and all of it with Mike Wall last week. Highly recommend you check that out if you haven't already. My conversation with Mike last week was one of my favorite episodes that I've ever done. It was just a conversation really between Mike and I, and it was just, for me, very enjoyable. I learned a lot from it, and I would highly recommend checking that out. Outside of that, I don't care about any of it anymore. I don't know. I'm not saying it's irrelevant. I'm not saying it's stupid. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying any of it didn't I just don't care. I don't care. And that's you guys know me well enough. I do this 365 days a year, right? So every little inkling of anything that becomes something matters to me because it could be something that I want to talk about because I talk about the Packers. I just don't care. I just do not care. And I don't agree with Rodgers with it being like a nothing burger and how he handled that conversation. I don't think it's that. I think all of this stuff is intriguing to some level and some degree. It might be very minuscule. It might not, whatever. But I don't know. I would rather talk about a million different things. I would rather pick a random practice squad player and let's break down their tape. That sounds a million times more fun. So if you are looking for conversation on hand signals or player meetings, there is a plethora of Packers content out there for you. It's not going to be me outside of, again, I think a very awesome conversation I had with Mike last week about the hand signal. So check that out. That's all I've got to say about that. All right, let's move on to some other notes. Pro Bowl announcements. Speaking of things that I don't care about at all, I don't know why I'm a curmudgeon today. I apologize. But the Pro Bowl is not even a thing. I know they're doing a Pro Bowl skills competition. How players got selected to the Pro Bowl was already, a farce probably at best. And now there's not even a game attached to it, that a game that was celebrated that they didn't even really play to the fullest extent. I don't know. This whole thing also is probably another topic for another day. But cool to see Jaire Alexander get rewarded as a Pro Bowl a Pro Bowl attendee, I guess, for the Green Bay Packers. He was their only official player selected to the Pro Bowl. There were multiple alternates, though, including Elton Jenkins, Kenny Clark, Aaron Jones, Keyshawn Nixon, Aaron Rodgers, and Preston Smith. Honestly, the only one I might really legitimately be making an argument for would be Keyshawn Nixon as a returner. And unfortunately, due to the Packers, he was not the starting returner at kick returner or punt returner to start the season. So it's very, very difficult to give him that honor when, Amari Rodgers took so many of those snaps earlier in the year. Had Nixon been returning the entirety of the season, I think he's probably the guy in the NFC at returner, at least very much in the conversation. But I still, worthwhile for him to be an alternate. I can't really make it. You could make an argument Jaire is not deserving this year either, if we're being honest. I can't really make a strong argument. The other player who has played very well since returning is David Bakhtiari, but barely played, or at least was injured to start the season, then played, and then got hurt again, and just hasn't played enough at this point. So other than that, I can't really make a strong argument for anyone that I think is a snub here or anything. Aaron Jones has had some costly fumbles throughout the course of the year. Other than that, he's run well. Christian Watson certainly came along, but again, not till later in the season and had injuries earlier in the season. Would not make a case for him as a top 4 wide receiver in the NFC anyway. Kenny Clark had probably the worst 5-game stretch of his career. Rashawn Gary injured. Otherwise, he would maybe have been in the conversation at edge, although that edge position very, very deep in the NFC. It's a real struggle to make an argument for anyone that is more than, that you could say man, this player absolutely should be in the Pro Bowl. Cool to see Jaire in it, but Outside of that, again, I think the alternates are probably the right selections this year, unfortunately, for the Packers. The other cool conversation, I guess is the first cool one, Keyshawn Nixon. There was some talk, I know, with LaFleur and Nixon of like wanting to play some slot wide receiver, Nixon wanting to do it, and then LaFleur brought it up in the presser a couple days ago. Cool discussion, right? I mean, sure, why not, right? If you told me that like he could do some of the Tyler Ervin gadget stuff that they did a couple years ago, absolutely. Like, put him in there for a few snaps, see what he can do, right? He's dynamic as a returner, just get the ball in his hands and who knows what happens. A couple things on why I would probably, A, don't hold your breath. And B, I don't think it really happens. Like maybe there's a snap where he gets in there, probably used as a decoy of like, are they like, oh, okay, who's 20, like why is that guy in there? And, they maybe, alert to it differently, etc., and see how they line up. But outside of that, right now you're trying to compete in every game for a playoff spot. Keyshawn Nixon is your starting slot. He played every snap last game. Plus he did kick returning. Plus he did punt returning. To add more to his plate, even if it's a handful of snaps, anything like that, probably doesn't make the most sense. He's already got a ton on his plate already. So having him play some slot wide receiver, probably not the smartest. You might say, well, what if they get eliminated from the playoffs? Maybe you want to just give him a look and see what he can do. Keyshawn Nixon is an unrestricted free agent. It is already going to be very difficult to get that guy back in green and gold because he looks like a legitimate slot corner and one of the best kick returners in the league, solid as a punt returner. If all of a sudden he has legitimate weapon value on offense as well, like his price tag is just going to continue to go up. So showcasing him to other teams if you get eliminated from the playoffs, probably not the smartest thing that you can do. And then you've also got, Christian Watson, who you can use in that role. I would like to see some more Samori Toure. Like you've got 5 interesting wide receivers that need all the playing time they can get right now. And Dobbs, Watson, Lazard, Cobb, and then Toure being your 5th. I just don't know that you need to steal, snaps from them to put Keyshawn Nixon as an experiment at wide receiver for a couple games. But it's a cool discussion. I think you could use it if all of a sudden they get in the playoffs and want to throw a wrinkle at somebody. By all means, go ahead, do it. But if I'm the Packers, I'm focusing Keyshawn on playing that slot position, which he's played very, very well, and playing every single snap at this past game, and then focusing on kick returning, punt returning. That's a lot on somebody's plate already. And if I were going to play Keyshawn more, he's an extremely valuable player on special teams and coverage units. They haven't used him on those spots as much because of all of the snaps he's already playing. I would rather get him more, snaps on special teams rather than randomly throwing him in at wide receiver. A fun discussion nonetheless, though, with Keyshawn. And yeah, I wouldn't put it by him that all of a sudden he could, play a handful of wide receiver, snaps a game, and maybe something crazy happens and he can be a playmaker on offense too. Would anything surprise you with Keyshawn Nixon at this point? Because it certainly wouldn't for me. Packers injury report came out for the week. David Bakhtiari and Elgton Jenkins, or at least the most recent one. Bakhtiari and Jenkins did not practice officially. Everyone else practiced in some capacity. Bakhtiari, my guess, probably won't go this week. Jenkins is likely getting his usual rest and should be good to go. This is just kind of following his similar pattern as of late. So Bakhtiari seems like he's going to be the one that will be a question mark through this week. And maybe we get good news later in the week, but right now, probably not super promising for Bakhtiari. All right, that brings us to our grades this week. On the offensive side of the ball, let's go over our top 3 graded offensive players this week. Number 1 might be a little bit of a surprise to you because he didn't have his normal set of touchdowns as he had as of late. And you might even think back and be like, man, I really liked Romeo Doubs. And I know Romeo Doubs is PFF's highest graded receiver for the Packers this week. Christian Watson ended up as my highest graded Packer on offense this week. This was actually one of my favorite games from Christian Watson so far. And he didn't have any huge stats in this game whatsoever. But it was how he impacted the game throughout the entirety of the game in all different ways. As a blocker, blocking on the little screen pass to the outside, as a decoy down the field. There was a completion over the middle of the field where Watson once again takes 2 defenders with them. And there's another play where, 2 players scream down at Christian Watson and then it goes in another direction. Like, just eyes are on him, attracting Jalen Ramsey for the majority of the game. The Rams' best defender focused on Christian Watson. Some of those late little third down bootleg plays where Christian Watson comes open in the flat and is able to pick up solid yardage on those plays. A pass interference play down the field. I know he didn't get the call on it, but probably should have been a holding or a pass interference in the end zone on Jalen Ramsey on that play as well, which would have likely set the Packers up on a 1st and goal from the 1-yard line had that been called. So it was just everything. It was attention from the defense. It was double teams. It was opening space up for other players. He made some contested catches over the middle of the field. Some key catches late in the game that picked up some first downs. I know he had with all the signal talk, I know he had the missed signal from Rodgers late in the game. He got graded down for that. But outside of that, I really enjoyed this game from Christian Watson. It wasn't the 2 touchdowns. It wasn't 100 yards. It wasn't anything crazy. It was just a all-around solid performance. And those are some of the things that you really want to see from Christian Watson, because it's not always going to be 4 catches, 120 yards, 2 touchdown type games. It's not always going to be that. Sometimes the ball is going to go to Romeo and, Allen and Randall and Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, and you're not going to be the guy that gets the ball in your hands a ton. Sometimes there's going to be days where Jalen Ramsey is shadowing you all over the field, or that you're getting consistent double teams. And sometimes you just got to be the decoy. Sometimes you just got to block for your teammates. Sometimes you just got to pick up some contested catches when the ball actually does come your way. And that's exactly what Christian Watson did in this game. It was a really nice growing game for him, and showing that, hey, I can make a real impact and help the team win, even if I'm not getting targeted 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times a game. And even if I'm not the focal point of the offense, watch me still impact this game. I really, really enjoyed this game from Christian Watson. Number 2, AJ Dillon. Obviously, he had the touchdowns, ran hard, and for a player who really struggled, maybe struggled is the wrong word, but just he really didn't look like himself earlier this season. We got to see, this past month, really what AJ Dillon is still very, very capable of, and being able to help your team in certain situations. I thought the touchdown run where he dragged defenders, obviously got a little bit of help from the offensive line as well, but just some really tough running from AJ Dillon. Had a couple nice catches as well. Just overall solid performance from AJ. Very few negative plays. Obviously did not have any fumbles like Aaron Jones did. Just a really solid performance from AJ Dillon. He was my 2nd highest graded player. And then number 3 was Elgton Jenkins, who has just looked night and day different from, going from right tackle to left guard. He was as sound could be. Not mauling in the run game, but consistent in the run game, and usually being able to kind of wall off his defender to give the running back some space, just enough space that he needed. Very sound in pass protection, giving Rodgers time. It was a Jekyll and Hyde game from the offensive line. I thought the offensive line started awesome early and then kind of fell off as the game went on. The one player who stayed consistent from beginning to end was Elgton Jenkins. And like I said, I still don't know that we're quite back to pre-ACL Elgton Jenkins, but these last few weeks have looked so much closer, and we're seeing really, really good football from Elgton Jenkins, and that's just such a promising sight to see. Of course, now he's an unrestricted free agent, which we've talked about already as well, but just either way, just for the player, for the human, for the person, loved seeing him get back, because you hate when ACL injuries happen. You never know how it's going to affect the player. It affected him very adversely when he was at right tackle and at a new position and returning from ACL, not himself. We're starting to see a real big return from Elgton Jenkins and what he's still very much capable of. Honorable mention to Romeo Doubs, who was PFF's highest graded offensive player for the Packers this week. In the amount of snaps that he got, the impact that he made was awesome, and he still graded very well in the positive for me. Had he played his normal amount of snaps, I think he would have had a little bit more impact on my grades this week, but I mean, on a per play basis, he would have been right up there, if not the highest on the team, grading on a per play basis. So really nice day from Romeo Doubs as well, and clearly made an impact when he had the opportunity to do so in this game. On the flip side, my 3 lowest graded players, number 1 was Yosh Nijman. Started strong, did not finish well, gave up some really key pressures at some inopportune times in this game. I thought this was the first time at right tackle that he actually had a little bit of struggle and just wasn't as consistent throughout the game as maybe we had seen in some previous weeks. Leonard Floyd gave him a little bit of trouble. I would have liked to have seen him just play a little bit better in this game. The Rams defensive front, not that good. So a little bit of a disappointing performance from Yosh Nijman. Robert Tonyan was my second lowest. Everything's just a slog for Robert Tonyan right now. Like the run after the catch is basically non-existent. He did have the one catch in the flat where he turned up and got like 3 yards upfield and got a first down, kind of got through a little bit of an arm tackle, but the run after the catch is non-existent. He's not able to stretch the field. He's not able to separate. He's not a good blocker. And for anyone that knows me, I was like Robert Tonyan Stan 101 for the first handful of years of his career. It's just not the same right now. And again, that sucks. I hate to say it. You don't want to see the guy struggle, especially coming back from an injury. And hopefully next year he bounces back and looks like the Robert Tonyan we saw pre-injury. I will say he usually catches everything that comes his way, but just nothing is coming easy for Tonyan right now. And that's just shown up all season long. I mean, he had the I think one play in the seam for a touchdown this year, but like your Robert Tonyan highlights this year are extremely few and far between. It's one thing if you're a Mercedes Lewis-esque blocker to sort of aid you through maybe some of your struggles in the passing game. Tonyan is not that. He's a below average blocker. Add that with a below average pass catcher and or at least threat, and you end up with a negative grade more often than not. I'll put it that way. And then number 3, the most frustrating player on the Packers. Once again, I'm just going to give him the award almost every single week. Josh Myers. First about half of this game, maybe a little bit less than that, Josh Myers was freaking awesome. Plus 0.5 grade. And I'm thinking like, man, as I'm going through the grades, I'm like, man, this might be Josh Myers' best game of the season. He's playing super consistent football. He had his normal quota of really good blocks, and you're just like, man, this is going to be the game for Josh Myers. Maybe this is a turning point. And then the rest of the game, he grades negative 0.7 and has those frustrating blocks. I don't know how many down blocks that there were that he just another frustrating game from Josh Myers, which has been the story of his career. Really good, really bad, in between. You never know what you're going to get. The only other thing I wanted to mention today was the rookies. And I talked yesterday about the defensive rookies in Enagbare and Walker and Wyatt, how they all graded in the positive on defense and had nice games. On the offensive side of the ball, Dobbs, Watson, and Tom all graded in the positive. And then Samori Toure had, I think, 2 or 3 snaps, no grade on any of them, just a neutral grade. But you had every single rookie combine on this roster or that played in the game with a plus 1.6 grade combined, with none of them grading in the negative. So Dobbs, Watson, Toure, Tom, Wyatt, Enagbare, and Walker. 7 rookies played. And some of these guys, Watson played a ton of snaps. Dobbs, although they reeled him back a little bit, just while he kind of recovers from injury, he still played a decent amount of snaps. Zach Tom was a starter. Devontae Wyatt got 9 snaps. Enagbare was a starter. Quay Walker was a starter. And then, like I said, Toure just got a few snaps here and there. But still, that is 7 rookies who combined played a pretty significant amount of snaps for this team. And all of them combined for a plus 1.6 grade, with none of them grading in the negative. That is extremely impressive for a rookie class. And this rookie class continues to be impressive. I know Devontae Wyatt, a little bit of he's been a disappointment just because he hasn't played a ton. People keep asking about them, and I've said this before, but Wyatt will play 9 snaps, 2 to 3. You watch his technique and you're just like, all right, I see why they don't play him more. And then he'll have 2 to 3 plays where you're like, eyeball emoji, like, holy cow, like, this guy can freaking play and just do some things that the other defensive lineman, not named Kenny Clark, just physically can't do. And then you've got about, 4 or 5 snaps that are just nondescript, right? Like, you're just there, not good, not bad, just whatever, right? That's been his like MO every single game. 2 to 3 eyeball emojis, 2 to 3, okay, I get it. I see why he's not out there. And then 4 to 5 nondescript plays. And he plays about 9 total snaps every single game. And it still leaves you wanting for more. But outside of that, and again, still showing some positives for Wyatt. I mean, this rookie class has been very impressive so far, and there could be some serious returns on Tom, Watson, and Dobbs on offense, to say the least. Toure, we'll see what he can contribute. And Egbare looks like a potential starter down the road. Quay Walker is a starter. We'll see what happens with Devonte Wyatt, but this is a rookie class that is worth being excited about. And man, you got that many players that are playing in some capacity, and all of them combined grading plus 1.6. Really, really nice day for the rookies and worth shouting out. That is going to do it for me today. I hope to see you right back here tomorrow for an all-new Pack-A-Day podcast. Make sure to subscribe if you have not already. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.